Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Gedeke, and I am going to be talking to you today about how to turn your CER skeletons into paragraphs. Okay, we are going to go over some tips to do this successfully, and I'll actually show you a couple of examples. So, we've been practicing CER skeletons for the last few weeks now. And you guys have gotten pretty good at it, at putting your information into those individual boxes. But now, to take our argumentative writing to the next step, we actually try to put it into paragraph writing. That really helps your argument be taken seriously, and it's the type of academic writing that you're going to have to do throughout your academic and possibly even your professional career. So it's really, really helpful to be able to do it well. So when you write a CER paragraph, we always want to follow this general outline. We start with our claim, okay? We then go on to evidence and reasoning, number 1. That's if you have multiple pieces of evidence. And then evidence number 2 and reasoning number 2 if you have multiple pieces of evidence. And then finally, and this is super important, you don't do this in your CER skeleton, but you always want to restate your claim just to kind of repeat and reiterate the point that you were trying to make. So on this next slide, we have some sentence starters for you, okay? Feel free to come back and look at this video or at the slideshow when you're writing your own CER paragraphs, because I personally find that sentence starters make it way easier. So for your claim, remember you're always answering the question, and we should be able to tell what the question is that you're answering when you write your claim. Your evidence, that would either mean a direct quotation or paraphrase detail. So far we've only been requiring you to do paraphrasing, so putting something into your own words, but eventually, or for certain assignments, you might have to actually use a direct quotation. And we have some sentence starters here. You always want to introduce your evidence. You do not want to plop your evidence. We have no evidence plopping. I know I've said that before in class, but we always want to start out our evidence with some type of phrase such as, according to the text, comma, or the author states that, comma, and then you'd put your evidence. Even if it's not a direct quote, that's really important to do. And then finally, your reasoning. It is not enough to just put your evidence and say, oh, it speaks for itself. It might, and it might very obviously prove what you're trying to say, but we're practicing argumentative writing, so we need to lay it all out, even if it feels super obvious. Okay, so your reasoning is where you explain in your own words. And here in my little speech bubble, I have an example of some poor reasoning. Okay, so if you were just to give the reasoning, this shows that Victor would do anything for Teresa. After giving evidence about Victor, if that's all you put for reasoning, that's not really sufficient. It actually doesn't explain or show how Victor would do anything for Teresa. Okay, so we'll talk more about that in the coming slides. Here's some sentence starters for reasoning. You could start it with this shows, this proves, etc. Okay, so here's an example of a CER skeleton that a student actually used for their empathy check-in number 1, and I thought it was really good. So you'll see they have their claim. Victor will do anything, even teach himself French to spend time with Teresa. This student put 2 pieces of evidence, and they used direct quotes. It says that Teresa asked him if he would help her with French. Sure, anytime, Victor said. And notice I put the author's last name and the page number there. And then the other piece of evidence says, the text also says that Victor checked out 3 French textbooks. and the author and the page number. Now the student did reasoning pretty well. Victor doesn't actually know French, but if he were to work very hard to learn it, he could spend time with Teresa. He desperately wants to be with her and impress her since he checked out 3 books. This tells me that he is determined to do anything to be with her. So that reasoning actually did a good job. It didn't simply say, this shows that Victor really wants to be with Teresa. It actually explained why. So now I'm going to show you guys an example of how you could take this, let's see if I can go back, take this and turn it into paragraph form, okay? Everything is color-coded, and everything that comes directly from the skeleton here is underlined, okay? So keep that in mind. We start with the claim. An inference about Victor in 7th grade is Victor will do anything, even teach himself French, to spend time with Teresa. So notice, you guys, that the part that's underlined is the part that came from the skeleton. First, the inference is shown when it says that Teresa asked him if he would help her with French. Sure, anytime, Victor said. Soto, page 4. Okay, once again, the underlined text is copy and pasted from the C.E.R. skeleton on the previous slide. The inference is shown when that was put in as an introductory phrase. You're going to have to add in some words so it sounds coherent and it sounds good. This proves Victor really wants to be with Teresa because Victor doesn't actually know French, but if he were to work very hard to learn it, he could spend time with Teresa. So notice here that I took only the parts of my reasoning that directly were related to this first piece of evidence. Okay, so I went and I chopped up the blue reasoning section from the previous slide and only took the parts that I thought were relevant to this example because the second example comes now. Next, the inference is shown when Victor checked out 3 French textbooks, Soto, page 4, from the library. And this is another good example of introducing your evidence with one of those sentence starters. Next, the inference is shown when, blah, blah, blah. This proves that he is determined to do anything to be with her because he desperately wants to be with her and impress her since he checked out 3 books. And then finally, and very importantly, this will absolutely polish your writing for you and make it college level. In conclusion, Victor from the short story 7th grade clearly will do anything, even teach himself French, to spend time with Teresa. Okay, we started our concluding sentence off with a sentence starter, an introductory phrase that said in conclusion and didn't just fully copy and paste that first read sentence. So that made it sound really, really polished. So we're actually going to practice together. We're going to read a really short excerpt from the book, the children's book, If You Give a Moose a Muffin. We're going to create a C.E.R. skeleton to outline our ideas. That's what we've been doing so far. And then live here in this video, we're going to use the C.E.R. skeleton along with the sentence starters from earlier to create a well-written C.E.R. paragraph. Okay? At this point in the video, your teacher may stop the video and give you guys an actual opportunity to do this live. Otherwise, you can just follow along and watch when I do this. So first I'll read you this excerpt. If you give a moose a muffin, he'll want some jam to go with it. So you'll bring some of your mother's homemade blackberry jam. When he's finished eating the muffin, he'll want another, and another, and another. When they're all gone, he'll ask you to make more. You'll have to go to the store to get some muffin mix. He'll want to go with you. When he opens the door and feels how chilly it is, he'll ask to borrow a sweater. So what we need to do, it says up here, the question, make an inference about a character trait that the moose has. So in order to type on this, I need to close that out. I'll try to make this as visible as possible for you guys. Remember, when we are writing a claim, we always want to restate the question. So a character trait that the moose has is, I think that the moose is, character trait that the moose has is that he is demanding and oblivious to the ways that he inconveniences those around him. Character trait that the moose has is that he is demanding and oblivious to the ways that he inconveniences those around him. All right, so my evidence. I am only going to give one piece of evidence just for the sake of, keeping this video a little more concise. So looking back at the evidence, the text says, and we always want to start with a sentence starter. According to the excerpt, the moose repeatedly asks for another muffin when he is finished eating. He finishes all of the muffins, then asks for more to be made. So according to the excerpt, the moose repeatedly asks for another muffin when he is finished eating. He finishes all the muffins, then asks for more to be made. So my reasoning, and remember, reasoning, as we learned yesterday from Mrs. Kostick's video, is often the most difficult part. If you struggle, go back and look at some of these sentence starters on slide 3. Okay? So we want to always start our reasoning with that, and that'll also give you a hint as to if you're doing your reasoning right. This shows that the moose is oblivious to the ways that he inconveniences those around him because he keeps asking for more muffins and even has the nerve to request that more are baked just for him. I know that when you are a guest in somebody's home or they offer you food, it is typically not polite to do this. Okay, everyone, there was a little technology problem on my end, but I am going to go ahead and re-record this last part for you really quickly. So where we left off was I put together this C.E.R. skeleton, okay? Your job now, since you all have access to this slideshow on Google Classroom, is you are going to go and on slide 9, on the last slide, copy and paste my C.E.R. skeleton, the text from that in, and color code all of the text in terms of claim, evidence, reasoning, and set it up in paragraph format, just like I showed you with the example from 7th grade. Make sure that you're using sentence starters, for example, on slide 3, and make sure that you are using all that we have learned. You can also feel free to tweak anything that I came up with. It was kind of on the fly, so it might not be the best. Or you can choose to add a second piece of evidence or more reasoning. Good luck, happy argumentative writing, and I know you guys will do great.